I'm Lisa Evers, and this is Street Soldiers.
Fox 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
Mental health issues are in the headlines, and concern across the board is growing. From the streets to superstars, everyone is affected. But for those suffering, there is hope and there's help. Crossing a line is Mike Shinoda's tribute to his close friend and fellow Linkin Park band member, Chester Bennington, who took his life in July of 2017. Shinoda's debut solo album is called Post Traumatic. It's music with a message.
I just basically tasked myself with creating this musical diary of my progress, of how I've done over the course of the year.
Shinoda tells me his goal with Post Traumatic was to peel away every layer of superficiality in the national mental health conversation.
Somebody says to you, "How are you doing?" You don't just say, "I'm doing fine." You actually have to stop and think about it, and you can say, "Actually, I'm feeling okay, but this thing is going on."
Right.
And as soon as you say that to somebody, it takes that problem and diffuses it. It makes it smaller. And it also lets the other person understand where you're coming from.
Sometimes, as with 20-year-old Annalise McCain, there is no warning. The popular college junior took her life, and for her father, a retired Port Authority Police Department ESU sergeant who spent his career saving lives, there was no hint of any problem.
And the day before, we were texting each other, and less than maybe 12, 14 hours later, she was gone. She had such a big heart, and she cared about people. She wasn't a selfish person, but she shared her smiles and concealed her tears.
High-profile celebrities like Mariah Carey and Kanye West are among those talking openly about their personal battles with mental health issues. Dr. Elisa English says getting professional help can save lives.
Mental illness in itself has an 80% cure rate, and that is phenomenal. That's more than any other illness that most people are inflicted by.
Government statistics show about a third of Americans suffer from depression. The CDC says suicide rates are rising across all demographic categories. Getting help saved Lawrence Hines' life.
I would say to anybody that that's dealing with suicidal ideations, suicidal thoughts, dealing with depression, that there is hope. It really is hope, but along with that hope, you have to get help because you can't do it alone.
There are many aspects to mental health. Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining me is Everett McCain. He's a retired Port Authority Police Department ESU sergeant. He was a first responder on many mental health crises and other safety crises. His daughter Annalise, who was in college, took her life almost 6 years ago. Now Everett is working to try to educate more people about this crisis that has been growing in recent years. Everett, great to have you with us. And thank you so much for speaking out in memory of your daughter. We really appreciate it. Also with us is Dr. Elisa English. She's a clinical therapist and mental health expert. Dr. Elisa, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Also with us is Lawrence Hines. He's a mental health advocate. He sought treatment himself for depression. He's also a branding and marketing consultant. He's out there trying to help other people deal with this in a healthy way. Lawrence, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Dr. Elisa, what is mental health? Because we see this term being used now. It's a buzzword almost, like we should be concerned about it. We should be aware of it. What is mental health?
Well, it's a set of behaviors and attitude and just overall changes in your mood that can be affected by both organic and non-organic factors that simply just impede on the quality of your life. It affects the quality of your life. And so if you see a change in your eating habits or your sleeping habits, or you're more isolated, or you're alienating yourself from others, there may be a reason to then seek some additional support and help.
And Lawrence, you tell us what was going on in your life when you decided to seek some kind of help.
So originally I was diagnosed when I was 19 years old. I'm currently now 36. And when I was originally diagnosed, I didn't seek help because I grew up in the church where if you were dealing with depression or suicide, it was demonized. So I didn't talk to anybody about it. So I later moved here to New York, and the suicide ideations became very, very strong. And it was just a point where I said, okay, either I'm going to commit suicide or I'm going to seek help to see what to do.
And so what happened? So you saw it, how you started thinking about it more, like ending your life or taking your life when.
So I found myself a couple times standing on the subway train station platform, and I would actually be rocking, ready to commit suicide, and sometimes I would come to tears on the platform, and I was like, okay, I'm at this point where either I'm going to live or I'm gonna die, and if I'm gonna live, let me see. Forget about the stigma. Seek help and see will it help, and if it doesn't help, then I'll commit suicide. That was my.
And that was it. You kind of reached that point of where it can't go on like this.
Yeah, it can't go on like this. It's either I need some relief or I'm going to do it.
And Everett, and we appreciate our condolences to you and your family.
Thank you.
About your daughter, your beautiful daughter Annalise, she was in college. She was one of these young women who just brings so much joy and seems so happy and doing well in school, and yet this happened to you and to your family and to her.
Yes.
Was there anything leading up to it that you? Because that's the question people always ask, like, because on the outside, she's there visiting you, she's there, she's with you, she's at school, she's doing well, she's in a sorority,
Nothing that I can put my finger on. I mean, there's times when she would call and she'd be upset about something, but most kids are, at times.
Right, of
cry
course.
on the phone and be upset. She'd talk to me, conference call with me and her mother, but nothing to this extent, and all of a sudden, that was it.
And you, as a Port Authority police officer, because you guys work the airports, you work the bridges, the tunnels, you yourself had to respond to a lot of people standing on top of that George Washington Bridge or doing other, ready to do other drastic things, and actually rescue them.
Many times you respond to the bridge jumpers, or even at an airport, you have somebody who wants to hurt themselves, and you try not to let them hurt themselves.
So when this happened to you, that must have been...
It's a shock. I mean, it's still a shock to this day. I mean, I'm living with it every minute. And it's like, you go, why me, why her? But it's a shock.
Dr. Lisa, when you hear the story, and everybody please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, it's very consistent around, suicide. The fact of the matter is many people who commit suicide aren't necessarily mentally ill. They may be going through episodic or situational depression around a circumstance, trauma, or issue that certainly they're finding it difficult to cope with. And one of the very unhealthy coping strategies that they use is they start to think about suicide, they start to plan and attempt, and in some cases they finalize it. One of the things we've learned from empirical data suggests that many people who are at the point of suicide are often trying to stop, like in the middle of it, like they're really trying to get the fight and flight in us. Makes it that we now want to save our life, but suicide is actually a final solution to a temporary problem, which is very unfortunate. And oftentimes, if people who were thinking about suicide had just made some healthier choices and perhaps connected with support, that situation that in fact thought it was so too heavy to cope with would also come to pass. So I think it's a myth that all people who commit suicide were just depressed.
Over a period of time.
time.
Lawrence, take us into your mindset back at that time when you're standing on the edge of the subway platform, ready to end it all. What's going through your mind? Are you feeling like there's no way out? Are you feeling trapped? Help us understand that.
I was actually feeling all that. It was so much going through my mind at one time. The thoughts of jumping, the thoughts of what people would say about me, the thought about the dreams that I had, were my dreams just dreams, and I was put on this earth for a reason, but it was just I was at the point where I was like, because when I was at that moment in my life, it's a mental, it's a emotional, it's a physical pain that it's hard to really describe. It's just you want it to stop, because your mind is going like literally 50 miles an hour. You're thinking about everything, things from childhood, things that are going on now, things about your loved ones. You feel like I felt like I would be a burden to people that I love to stay around. So it was just like, okay, so do I
Like a hypersensitivity, like
yeah, it's like literally like a hypersensitivity. It's like the feelings in your body are heightened, your mental thoughts, the flashes. Like literally, I was having flashes of memories and things about what I thought my future should be, and that moment, and then also the religious thoughts that weren't helping. It's like, okay, do I want to die? If I die, I'm going to hell. Do I want to go to hell? I don't really go to hell. So it's like all that going on. Then it's like you just get to the point where you literally feel like you're about to explode mentally, and it's just like, stop, please stop. And it's like you're talking to your mind, saying, stop, just give me a break. Just let me see clarity just for a moment.
is there usually a precipitating event, or is there like some immediate
it's usually
crisis
a
or something?
relationship. I can say, based on what I know, it's either some kind of relationship that failed or hasn't worked out for the person, or some kind of I don't want to use the word self-esteem. I think it's loosely. It's used a bit too much, like it's too loosely. But I think, feeling like you're less than for whatever reason, and for some reason you feel like you just don't want to be here because no one wants you, no one likes you, no one wants to connect with you. Yeah. I know it sounds so simple, like, no, it can't be that. Anyone can find a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a lover or whatever. No, it's not that simple. And when you care about people,
it's more fundamental.
Yeah.
What about that?
Well, I'm not, without going into a lot of details, I know my daughter at times, I said, well, why don't you hang out with your friends? Well, they're not my friends. And I'm like, you have to have friends. When she passed, you should see how many people came out of the woodwork and were so upset that she was gone. Girls from her sorority at her wake and funeral were crying their eyes out. People were so touched by her. She has a legacy page. And even to sometime this year, someone wrote on a legacy page, there was one person in particular who, she was in an internship that summer, because she died during the summer, who talked about how she really touched her and helped her. So she didn't realize that a lot of people were going to miss her when she did this. And she touched a lot of lives in her short 20 years. So,
and was there, now that you look, as you found out more, and please stop me if this is too painful for you, were there boyfriend or relationship issues that she was going through?
There was an issue that I think, with a boyfriend that triggered her actions. Boyfriend of a very, very, very short period of time.
You're an ex-police officer, and you're used to taking situations and kind of like putting two and two together and figuring out what really happened.
Yeah, but we believe, and I'm in my heart, I know something happened with her and a boyfriend probably the night before.
And just drove her to despair.
Drove her over the edge, so to speak.
Will you guys jump in, please?
Just to kind of speak on what you just said about how she has a legacy page and how many people came out. One thing and this is something that I even expressed in therapy years ago, is that I was living in New York and I still felt invisible. I was going to church, I was interacting in church, and I still felt invisible. Because I think it's a thing when you are dealing with depression and people don't really understand, and I'm not saying you, I'm just saying people in general, or don't try to understand, that is what makes you invisible. And then when you go to, because I went to friends, and when I look back at it, people that didn't understand me then, I don't blame them at all.
Like, what would they say to you? Like, you go to them and say, I'm really hurting, and like, what did they say to you?
You stronger than this.
Yeah, you're strong.
You always laugh, and your jokes, you'll get over it. Pray about it.
Like, it's a passing thing.
It's a passing thing. You
that.
loved, and it's like, yeah, you say that, but I need you to understand the pain that I'm going through. Don't just tell me I'm stronger than this. Don't just tell me all the positive. I need you to, and when I say understand it, I just sometimes want somebody to say, hey, can I go to therapy with you? Just to see what you're, as a collateral support.
let's just look for a minute at the case with Anthony Bourdain, because here's somebody, you talk about relationships. He had a girlfriend. He had a close friend that he worked with who was with him the night before, traveling with him, the French chef. He had a great career. He had a lot of adulation. He had a lot of people around him. He was in a very people-oriented business, and yet he apparently took his own life. So how does that, there seemed to be a lot of intact relationships there. Had a daughter too. Does that?
Do you know that they were intact?
Well, I mean, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like,
so Robin Williams, I mean, we learned that his marriage was not intact. In fact, he was in the house dead for hours before she even noticed that he wasn't in the room with her. So I mean, 12 hours passed, you didn't notice.
So you're saying you can't judge by looking on the outside,
right? At
all.
And people really have a high tolerance for toxic relationships, also, for whatever reason.
And then also, even if everything you stated is factual, again, when you're going through it, you can still feel alone. Like you can have everything and still feel invisible, and you can still feel alone, because even in my moments, even though I live in New York, I have a great support system from the South where I talk to my best friends sometimes every day. It doesn't go a week that I only talk to them at least 4 times a week. So, even having that support, and they know everything about me,
right?
I still felt invisible, even though I had support coming from the church that I now go to.
Because you're not seeing clearly, and you're not feeling clearly, right?
Because you don't feel like people understand. Because when you do talk about it, or you do, because the thing about it is, like when I was at one of my lowest moments, it took a lot for me to come to somebody and talk to them about it. But if I started
about the pain,
right, about depression, about and then when I would start that conversation, and then for them to immediately tell me how I should feel, I immediately shut back off then, because I'm like, you don't understand. This is not like a headache. And I would tell anybody, if you have not gone through depression that has lasted, years.
Wow.
Like the mental strain that you have, because like with me, the mental battle that I would go to sleep with it, I would wake up with it. I would go to sleep with it, I would wake up with it. Sometimes I would wake up in the morning, it would take me literally 2 hours just to get out of bed to try to face my day.
Wow.
And so for you to try to tell me how I should feel, or you don't feel like that, or you're a believer, so believers shouldn't, it's like, no.
So the best thing though is for friends and family members, are you saying to just listen without judgment?
Listen without judgment, definitely. That is the number one. And if somebody
and not say like, oh well, look, you know what, Lawrence, you got everything going on for you. This is great. You don't have any reason to be sad. That. I mean, that's a common response that people have.
Yeah.
Right.
But see, the thing about it is what you don't understand as well.
That's
you can still have all that, but on the inside, there's a chemical imbalance.
That's right.
And the chemical imbalance is a thing that you can have the world, but if that chemical imbalance is off,
yeah. Organic factors there, you can't.
And
change
so just to listen to what people to listen to them.
Yeah.
And then as you would be as a person who's going through it would be talking, maybe then they start to realize, okay, this is pretty serious. This is like they can see themselves and understand. What do you think about that, Everett?
Well, just what he was saying about the, you don't know. People say you have everything going for you. Like, I have to go back to my daughter. I mean, she had finished her 3rd year of college. She was going into her senior year in college. She did an internship. She was getting ready to graduate. And she's gone. I mean, you could say, wow, she had everything going for her. But obviously, in her mind, she didn't.
Yeah.
And, I mean, she would have graduated because they actually graduated her posthumously the following May.
Wow.
I mean, she was ready. She was there. But obviously, in her mind, she wasn't. There was something going on that made her not feel like she needed to be here anymore.
Exactly. Well, hopefully we can, in her memory, spread some awareness about this, and other people will get help that they need before it's too late. I want to thank all of you for being with us for this episode of Street Soldiers. Everett McCain, Dr. Elisa English, thank you so much for being with us. Lawrence Hines, thanks so much for being with us. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace.
now.